Cameron Stewart, locked on Baylor.
Yeah.
The Indiana job is open once again. And we know, the Windhorse, we know that Scott Drew last offseason was eyeing Kentucky very seriously. Multiple reports that he was in Lexington or his family, and it was, will we go? And does his wife want to leave? And he goes to the Mexican restaurant and sits in that booth. This might be the big one. Indiana's open for like the 7th time since Scott got to Baylor. And once again, already, Scott Drew is leaving Waco for Bloomington, Indiana.
Look, I can't rule it out. Like, as much as we should be able to just rule it out with what Scott Drew has turned down, and we even, like I said it last year, so I'm going back on what I said, was that if Scott Drew turns down Kentucky, it's like, what job's he going to take at this point? But there's just enough here to be like, to worry a little bit if you're a Baylor fan. And he's what, 50, 51? That's probably around the last.
Hold on. I mean, I'm just trying to like play a bit and be facetious here. You actually think there's something to be worried about?
A little bit. Okay. Not as much as I was worried about Kentucky last year, but it's not one that I can just dismiss right away. It's about the last time he can start over.
Modern Day is open, and Matt Campbell. I hear Matt Campbell's going to take it. Like, I think Matt feels like.
I think Matt Campbell's ready to go. I think Matt Campbell's ready for a new challenge. Personally, it's just, especially with this revenue sharing, which I know is part of this show. Revenue sharing could do some painful things to a school like Baylor, and not as much to a school like Indiana. So we know that he really considered Kentucky hard last year. And, have it on good authority that he basically went to Baylor and said, hey, I need like a blank NIL check here. Like we need to spend the money here in order to compete and keep us at a level that you think that we're at, and that we've shown that we can be at, which is a Final Four national championship type of level. And you saw it in the pudding in terms of the players that he brought in the transfer portal this year. Has it worked out? No. But certainly spent a lot of money there. That's going to be a lot easier for Indiana to do that. And with this revenue sharing and how much you're going to have to split up, and with Baylor football starting to become good, like if you have another season in basketball like you had this year, like people are going to want more money. People that are donating the money are going to want more towards football than towards basketball. Like that's just what people care about at the end of the day. I know I see it in my views every week. Like people care more about football. And at Indiana, I know they're in a good spot right now. They just made the CFP. They love Signetti and everything. Maybe there's a little bit more going to football than in years past, but that is a basketball school. That is a 100% basketball school, and they have donors who are willing to donate strictly to basketball. And that could be just a bit of a better situation for Scott Drew than what is on the horizon at Baylor, not what's happened so far at Baylor. The thing that kind of makes this intriguing to me is trying to compare it to the Kentucky opening last year, obviously two blue bloods of college basketball, but very different scenarios. Kentucky is still pretty damn good. They also lost their coach in April. And I don't think Scott Drew was first on their list. He was probably third or fourth, and they end up going down to probably 5 or 6 to get Mark Pope. Indiana is going to have Scott Drew near the top of the list. You know, they'll have Grant McCasland as well for another Big 12 one. They'll have Chris Beard on that list too, I'm sure. But they have not gotten this right in a while. And they tried the NBA guy in Mike Woodson, didn't work. They need to go out there and
They tried the sweaty guy.
They did try the sweaty guy. It didn't work. They've got to go out there and spend top dollar for a premier college basketball coach that still has some years ahead of him. Sorry, Rick Pitino. That still has some years ahead of him to do it at Indiana. And they have the benefit of kind of working the last couple of weeks of the season here in order to kick tires and find out who might be interested in this job, a luxury that Kentucky didn't really have. Now, the comparison I have for it to football is Nebraska. Obviously, you know, Indiana moves on from Tom Crean because they think they could do better. Nebraska moves on from Bo Pelini. They think they could do better. Neither have in 10 years or so since then, 5 or 10 years, whatever it's been.
Crean wasn't the sweaty guy. Sean Miller's the sweaty guy. The sweaty guy. Crean's the like orange fake spray tan. That's right.
Yeah, looked like if he added 10 or 15 pounds, he would be John Lovitz. Yeah. Nice guy, Tom Crean. Nice guy.
You met him?
One time. Did meet him at the NCAA tournament. Very quick. So I compare it to Nebraska football because this is the same kind of thing we hear all the time, right? Sleeping giant, blue blood. They're going to go out and get this coach or this coach or this coach. We heard it for so long. And really what they got was Matt Rule, which is a good hire. He's a good college football coach, but he's coming in from just being fired from the NFL. Like he didn't have a ton of options at his disposal. You weren't prying him from somewhere. You might have found the diamond in the rough with him, and maybe the next coach is pretty high profile for Nebraska. But for Indiana basketball, it's like, I don't know that you can just lure away a Scott Drew or a Grant McCasland. You might have to get a guy who doesn't have a ton of options right now, but is shown to be a good coach in the past. I don't know who that guy is, but
the Charleston coach who's at Louisville, don't know his
Kelsey?
Name. Is it Kelsey? Okay. Yeah. So same deal there, right? Where it's, hey, we are a multi-billion-dollar basketball institution. We want a guy, but what guy wants us? Let's go get mid-major successful man. And, sometimes that works out, but it's not necessarily foolproof at all.
No.
Shaka Smart.
That's a good example. Yeah. Shaka Flocka, man. He's found some
Who's
success
great
now,
if you just hey, does your university have less than 10,000 students? Great. I'll never lose. Anything more, buck stops there, friends.
Can I wear my Under Armour long sleeve under my polo? And they go, yep. All right. We'll go to the Final Four eventually.
Ball or hair? What's the protocol when it comes to a head coach?
That's tough. Yeah. We got to lay some guidelines out there.
So
I think there's just a little bit. I just think there's just a little bit of a chance. Okay. Not as much as I would have given Kentucky last year, to be fair. And he turned down Kentucky.
That one was he was.
That was really close. I think that's closer than a lot of people think it was.
They were knee deep into that one.
Yeah. We were making plans.
And then he goes to Casa de Rancho and sits in that booth, and they take the picture of him and they frame it and they put it in there. Scott Drew, and he holds up the bass fish. He's not Indiana. Just because Homer Drew.
He is from Indiana. I've seen some people be like, why would he want to go to Indiana? It's like, I don't know. It is a pretty premier job in college basketball, and he's literally from that state. But I think that might work to our advantage. He'll know how much of a pressure cooker that job is. We were saying about Kentucky. He certainly knows about that firsthand for Indiana. Not that he's scared to do that, but it's like when you have a good situation somewhere else, it's like, why go into the pressure cooker? Pat Kelsey needed to make a step up, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's a good, again, Scott Frost is a great example. Native son of Nebraska, played there, and Woodson played at Indiana under Bobby Knight. So I mean, these people there, you keep trying to go to
perfect.
Let's hire our friend. We know that he's from here. He's the alum. Scott Drew's from Indiana. Stop.
Could you imagine if Scott Drew is the first coach to consistently win at Indiana since Bobby Knight? Like that dichotomy, that duality of a successful basketball coach in Indiana.
Scott's like, we're all just going to hold hands. This
is the state of people that were like, so what? He choked the player. The guy plays 5 minutes a game. Who cares? He's not. He never choked Isaiah Thomas. That's the kind of basketball fan we're dealing with. All the power to him.
I've been to Indiana. I've been to Sullivan, Washington. Bar Reeve, I think, is a place. French. I spent a week in French Lick.
Oh, really?
No way. A lot of Larry Bird stuff there. A lot of cool dive bars, too. What else are they going to do? It's French Lick. There's still population like 4,000.
You can probably catch Larry at one of those, honestly.
Yeah, and at this point. Coming up, Texas Tech is changing the NIL game, and I think everybody else is trying to catch them, possibly, ? Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.